All right, so blessings and much love to everyone actually joining us here tonight. Welcome to share your mental health journey and ask anything this afternoon, well, this evening, particularly in this session here today. We are all about mental health, your experience, and any questions that you may have that you may have along that arena, along that line, with regards to what you may be experiencing and what you may know others are experiencing. Collaborating for the session here today, well, for those of you who don't know me, my name is Zane Pierre. I am the headmaster of the International Institute of Pneumatology that is dedicated to the pragmatic and experimental research of not only the ancient Hebrew principle of the biblical literature, but also the energetic mechanics of spirit, of human spirit, how it works, what is that law of physics to actually bring to bring everyone into the synergy of the function of their own spirit. Collaborating with me here today is Coach Kourtney King. Coach Kourtney, go ahead and say hello.
Hello, everyone.
Yeah, so Coach Kourtney King in particular. Hello, everyone. Feel free to unmute and say hello.
Hello, Zane. Good evening. Good evening.
Holy Brother Norman, how are you? Holy Sister Monica.
Yeah, doing fine.
How are you doing? How are you doing?
All right. Hello, Coach Kourtney.
Hello.
Hi.
How are you?
Hi, Zane.
Hello, Holy Sister. How are you doing?
Oh, I'm good.
Awesome. So this session today is actually strictly audio. So no videos for this session here today. So we would actually be conducting this straight audio. All right. So Coach Kourtney King in particular, and I have actually known each other for how many years now, Coach Kourtney?
About 3 or 4, maybe.
About three or 4 years. About 3 or 4 years, and
yeah.
Not more than now. It's about 10 months. Yeah.
Say it again.
It's about 10 months since we actually started working together.
Oh, like doing this? Yes. Actually, it's been a year.
A year. Wow.
A year this month.
Wow. Okay. So, Coach Kourtney King in particular, we know each other for that amount of time, and over the last year, I have actually been mentoring Coach Kourtney, which based on the research at the International Institute of Pneumatology, and she actually today we have the opportunity to hear her story, right? And a little more detail than she would actually express. Today, we have the opportunity of hearing her story, where she came from, what her journey from where she was to where she is now was like. But she is actually one of the persons that I've actually worked with that showed a remarkable and dramatic transition from the experiences of her story to being able to actually coach people and be a master mental resilience hard coach today. And most of us in particular may have seen her online, and you see some of the awesome and rich content that she actually puts out. But she has a journey, she has a story, and today we are actually going to have the opportunity to hear in a little more detail than most persons may have heard what the story is, what did she come from, so that you can see a little bit of the history behind the person. So, Coach Kourtney.
Yes.
Before we actually engage Coach Kourtney, we just want to let you all know that for the first 20 minutes or 30 minutes, she would actually take her time to unpack or to share her story. And when she is finished, we will encourage those of you here online right now, and for those of you who are joining us on Facebook, please feel free to go to the events tab and click the link that is actually on the events to come in, because we would like to hear your story on mental health and what that was like for you. All right, so Coach Kourtney, we, as I mentioned this now, would you take the time to actually begin now to actually share what your experience was like?
Sure.
A little more detail and what some of the things that you may have actually gone through.
Yeah.
And some of the things that, some of the emotional and mental impacts that those things actually had on you, so that our audience here can actually get to know who Kourtney is a little more.
Yeah, absolutely. So, hello and good evening, everybody who's listening and who will be listening. I am going to just, like he said, share briefly a little bit about me because I can't pack 41 years into 15 minutes, but I will do my best. But I spent most of my life really in a horribly emotional state, which is why mental health is so important to me, and to really get it out to people that no matter what you've gone through, you don't have to stay in that state. So for most of my life, I didn't like myself. I felt that I was unlovable, that I was unlikable, unintelligent, unworthy, unattractive, crazy, like mentally crazy, inadequate, and just an inconvenience to anybody that was around me. So you may have heard me say this before, but I wrote a story when I was younger that said, "My life is nothing but a shadow among the fog." And so I always saw myself in like this pit, and I would look up in the sky and wish that I was free. And I grew up in a Republican Christian household in Oklahoma City. So it definitely shaped my view of like how I saw God, and just different experiences that I had really gave me this mindset and this logic that I just told you all, that I just was no good and I was worthless. And so yes, Christians can be depressed too. Feelings of inadequacy and just feeling horrible about myself and not really wanting people to know about it, which is, I think, another reason why this is important to do what we're doing tonight, because you can see someone who literally was unlovable, unlikable, unintelligent, unworthy, unattractive, crazy, inadequate, and felt like she was an inconvenience, and can tell you without a doubt that I don't believe any of those things anymore. About myself, I was always striving to get God's approval. I literally had to go back and read my journal. And so Zane, let me know when my time is up too.
No, you
But
go
I
ahead.
had to I literally I'm a journaler, and I've been journaling my whole life. And in order to do this event, I had to go back, look at my journal so I could remember some of the things. Because what's great about just this process that I've gone through is you forget so much of what has happened to you. You know, forget those things that were. And so I had to go back. And one of the things I wrote in my journal is, "God, are you disappointed in me?" And of course, that his response to me in my journal wasn't yes, but I always felt like he was angry with me because I struggled sometimes to stay in the spirit. I was always worried about being in his will. Um, I would do these things called fasting challenges, and one of them that I read today was called Fasting for Freedom. And it was basically where I would fast and I'd pray and worship for like hours and hours and hours on end and study the word and constantly just like seeking forgiveness and already always worried about whether or not I was meeting whatever the standard was that I had in my head that I had to meet. Because otherwise, if I didn't do these fasting for freedoms and these moments or these times, I would always feel guilty. And I was looking because I was having these issues in my mind. I was always like looking for the Lord to change my heart. And now I live from my heart, which is hallelujah blessing. And I was always looking for him to build my spirit. So these are like phrases that I was writing in my journal as I went back and looked. What were the kind of things I was saying to myself? What was my narrative? What was my story that was in my head? That was it. Go ahead.
So Kourtney,
Yeah.
what were some of the things that actually drove you to have those feelings of being unintelligent, being not attractive, and all of the adjectives that you use? What were some of the things that actually pushed you to that point?
I think from my earliest childhood memory was when I was molested. I was very young. I was probably like 5 or something years old. And I literally can remember the moment that it happened. But I think for a while I suppressed the memory. And then when I started to remember it again, I started to feel guilty and gross about myself. I started to feel unlovable, unlikable when I told other people in my family about it. And basically, nothing was done about it. No one believed me. And so it made me feel like I wasn't worthy. I also grew up in a suburb of Oklahoma City, which is called Edmond, Oklahoma. So it was predominantly white. And so because I was dark complected with large lips and big nose and big forehead and nappy hair, there was definitely some teasing and some bullying. And from friends and family, because I was dark skinned, I was considered ugly. So that was not that was not helpful either. So these are like some of the ways that that was like part of my experience that I was dealing with.
And,
Go ahead.
and what exactly were the condemnation regarding whether God was disappointed in you?
You said where was what?
Like, what were some of the things that drove you to feel like God condemned you, like he was disappointed in you?
Well, I think because I didn't reach that standard. Like I said, I was always doing like these fasting challenges and I was always comparing myself to others. In fact, like one of my things is because I spent, a lot of my time in church. I always like felt like I wasn't worthy enough to like be around leadership. And I just kind of put people on a pedestal oftentimes and felt like I had to dim my light, and I was very shy around people if I felt that I wasn't unworthy or they may not like me if I were to actually say what I actually thought and being able to speak my mind. So even yesterday I got on, I began to talk about boundaries. Well, boundaries were a newfound friend for me because before I wouldn't speak up for myself because I was concerned about how everybody would judge me or think that I was also stupid. In other words, they would agree with the thing that I thought about myself. And so not only was I looking for validation from people in ministry, but I also used ministry to validate myself because I was also in leadership. And so if there were 20 ministries at the church, I probably oversaw or was involved in some form of way in leadership out of probably 15 out of 20. Over a span of 20 something years, I literally made church an image, and it was because I was looking to please God and I was looking to be in his will. So I always felt like I never was doing enough, but I also felt like I had to do it all in order so that I could be accepted and also receive accolades. And
Right.
acceptance was a major thing for me because of what happened to me when I was so young. I'm pretty sure there was a story I created in my head about myself. As I read my journals, I also found that because I was looking to be accepted, I found myself compromising what my values actually were. I found as I read over things like there were men that I would meet, specifically my ex-husband. Before he was my husband, there were certain values that I held at the time that he didn't hold. And, you know, I was doing things with him, you know, sex or whatever. And then I would feel really guilty after. So then I would have to like fast and pray for 3 weeks to get forgiveness again.
Wow.
And I think that I would have these sessions where I would worship for like hours and hours upon end. And then I was also the worship leader and the worship pastor and different times in my life, because we're talking 20 something years in ministry. And I would feel guilty when I was unable to bring the spirit to the service. I felt like because I was inadequate, I wasn't worthy of leading, and I hadn't prepared my heart for worship because I may have messed up on one of my fasting. And so I was responsible for the fact that there was no breakthrough that Sunday in church
Wow.
because
Wow.
I led worship and worship goes first, and I messed it up for whatever reason. And I would just be begging God like before service start. I remember almost every Sunday I was like, Lord, please just let your spirit fall. And I promise that after service, I'll be better, you know, but you know, I had no anointing. There was a lot of fear in my life. I came from spiritual people and they always talked about like demons. So I remember for a long time, there was like this demon that followed me around for years. And now I have a different understanding. Praise God. Um, he followed me around for so long and I was afraid to like be in my house by myself, or you know, it was insane. And so was I dealt with a lot of lack. I have been on Section 8. I have lived in a place with rats in the wall. I have been homeless. I have lived in a garage. I have given my child my last meal because I didn't know where my next meal was going to come from. I have been socially awkward where I could hardly speak to anybody because I was so worried where they would speak to me. And so I just came off really strange. Now, all of this is very hard to believe because I really tried to mask it with my I consider myself to be a very funny person and a very bubbly person, but this is all what was going on inside of me. But I also was very judgmental and pious, and I was looking at my journals writing things like, oh, they just really need Jesus. And essentially I couldn't figure out who I was. And I was helpless and I felt hopeless and I felt like this just victim mentality. And I was just consumed with these thoughts of, you know, not being, you know, the girl that my dad wants me to be, or the things that, you know, my parents really thought about me. Like, what if they found out that's not who I really am? And what if people really knew that I was double-minded and I was unsure about myself and that I was miserable? And I remember also really wanting to move to New York City and get involved in acting. And I do live in New York City now, but I wanted to get involved in acting, and I went to school for something else because I didn't feel like I was going to be good enough to go to school for theater. And the thing that came to a head for me was a few years ago when my mother she hit her head, and I lived in Phoenix at the time, and my mother was still in Oklahoma City, and she was put into a coma because of the brain damage she had from hitting her head. And I drove 14 hours without stopping from Phoenix to Oklahoma City, and I tried to wake my mother up and to restore her brain. But because I had been so busy, I hadn't been doing my fasting fests. And I felt responsible for killing my mom. They let her stay on life support for a little bit longer because it was Easter and they were gone. But when they came back, they said, you know, if she even ever wakes up again, she's going to be a vegetable. So I basically killed my mother. And I walked around saying that for the longest time, probably almost 2 years. I killed my mother. I killed my mother. So that was not helpful to the mindset I already had. So I was angry and I was upset and I was depressed. And years prior to that, I had gone through a really horrible like marriage. And I had a tendency to kind of be obsessive and boy crazy because again, I was looking for someone to love me. And I was in a really bad marriage. It was like I was extremely religious. He wasn't, even though we grew up in the same church. And he was cheating on me and I was verbally abusive. It was just like an insane situation for 6 years of my life. And we finally, divorced. And I think the thing that was harder for me was like one of the people I was discipling turns out to be one of my son's brother, who has a brother with one of the people I was discipling. So that was really hard. I was just very embarrassed about the whole situation, and I hadn't been with anybody in a long time. And so after my mom died, I met someone who I was like, this is it, Lord. I know this is you. It didn't work out with him. I ended up having a miscarriage. And so all of this just sent me, and all of the things that I had been dealing with for 30 something years prior to that, sent me into the deepest, darkest. I was still functioning, but it just sent me into the deepest, darkest level of depression and sadness and just fear driven and undesirable level that I ever have experienced in my life. And it really wasn't until, so I ended up going to therapy, which is great because you get to talk about your situation and you get to let energy out. So that's another reason why we're allowing people to really share their story tonight. But also, it did not give me a new logic. So it didn't help me change my narrative about myself, about why I felt like when I went to school, I had to make the best grades. Like I went to school in California and I had to make straight A's. And, going to school, I went to every theology school. I went to prophetic school. Like I felt like I had to be the valedictorian every time. And usually I was, because I needed those accolades, and I needed the accolades to really, and those accomplishments to build up this thing about myself, because I was already so just low. And literally, I'll use the word broken. I know that's something that's based on logic now, but I was just in a horrible mental state, and always, again, just looking for somebody to just want me. I remember like floating between my parents when they finally divorced, and feeling like I was probably 9 years old when they separated. I remember the day. I remember my dad calling us into the bedroom and us getting under the covers together, and my dad saying, your mom and I are separating, and me feeling like, what the heck? Because I thought everything in my life was okay. And I remember feeling, oh no, it's my fault because I did something. I did something that made my parents get divorced. And so I blame myself for my parents separating and for them divorcing. I didn't know that they were having problems. And I just, it's always just been really challenging. And so to have given you all the 15-minute version of 40 years, I'm sure I left some things out, but I just had a very unhealthy mind, an unhealthy mentality.
So at what point would you say that you actually came to the epiphany that it was an unhealthy way of thinking or an unhealthy way of approaching life?
Well, I went through a transition because I came out of a very strict apostolic church, Pentecostal, charismatic. And so I actually went on this journey, like looking for other perspectives on God. And so it was kind of like, I started listening to like Bill Johnson and Patricia King. And then I found this other group on Facebook. And eventually I found Zane Pierre. And, and so as I listened to like these other ways of thinking, I realized that my sinking thinking was driving me insane, and that there was another way to look at things. And I would say things that immediately changed. Probably, I would say, and if within a couple weeks of meeting with you, my thoughts about myself started to change. I still went through a process, but definitely my thoughts about myself began to change.
Is there? Can you say that that there was a catalyst in some form or fashion?
For what specifically?
To actually make that within those few weeks, or was there anything in particular that mainly gave you the epiphany? Sometimes people have a moment that it clicks.
I think we went through a process, but I think the main thing that I realized, because I functioned from a victim mindset, was when I really began to learn that I wasn't the victim. I was actually in charge. I was actually the one who decided what my life looked like. And for me, that was astounding, because I had been waiting for so long for someone to rescue me. And even my version of Jesus, he wasn't rescuing me. I was always still dealing with it. And I was always waiting for him to come and get me out of that pit that I told you all before. So I think as we began to really shift into the fact that everything that I needed for my life was already in me, that was probably the moment where it was like, whoa.
Right.
So I don't have to be like this. I don't have to be like this. I could change it myself.
Right. No,
Yeah.
That is an awesome recount of where you came from.
Yeah.
And it's actually awesome that you took the time to actually express that here tonight, because a lot of people actually can't see you and just assume that Kourtney was this awesome person that never had any worries.
Yeah.
Because of where you are now, and where you've taken dominion.
Yeah.
You actually learned what dominion is, and actually put that into an active framework and brought change. Now, for those of you for those of you listening here, when I personally actually began to interact with Kourtney, to mentor her, that person in particular was the person that I encountered. And one of the things that I actually realized with Kourtney is that she came to the realization, one of the most remarkable things is that within a short space of time, she came to the realization that the logic that she was accustomed to live life, she came to the realization that the logic wasn't functional, and she was really asking, is there another logic?
Yes. Is there another way?
Is there another way? And most of us in particular are not familiar that you are living life from your heart, and your heart in particular. And through our research at the Institute, just as what an engine is to a vehicle, your logic is to your heart.
Yeah.
Most people are not aware of that. Right? So where would you say you are now, Kourtney?
Oh, I stay guiding. I live from my heart. I live from my breath. And the things that I just described to you, I don't think that I'm unattractive. I don't believe that I'm unintelligent. I don't believe that I'm crazy. I believe that I'm fully adequate, likable, and capable of love. I'm able to set boundaries for myself. I'm able to establish what I want my life to look like. And we've done that process myself and clients and others, just taking the methodical process and walking out this logic of living from your heart. It definitely has the power. It has changed my life. I know that I was pursuing external points of validation in terms of my career, in terms of my relationships, how I even raised my child. If I were to go back, my son is 16. If I were to go back, he's almost 16, and re-raise him, he would be raised by a completely different person. So now I'm giving him that framework now. I don't deal with low self-esteem. I don't function from lack mentality. I don't feel like there's something missing from me. I don't question my sanity. I don't question whether I'm not a victim. I don't have identity codependency. So I'm it's literally a complete 180 if you want to say it that way. I don't compromise my values. Yeah.
Right. Awesome. It's really rich to actually hear your story and to hear where you came from.
Yeah.
And for a lot of persons to actually hear who Coach Kourtney is and where Coach Kourtney came from, and the story behind the efficacy of what she's doing now with regards to the passion that you, even hear in your voice when you speak about it, the passion that you have to actually help others to come out of that, or to walk with them to bring them out of that, so that they can actually take dominance over themselves and over their lives, over everything in their life.
I think the main thing for me is I was so looking for someone else to rescue me, when the whole time that I was my own rescuer. And I even realized when I went back to look at journals, just so I could refresh what I was, or what I thought I was in a horrible marriage, I mentioned. And when I look back, I am the one who forced, number one, my ex-husband to ask me to marry him, because it was my 21st birthday. And he asked me, like, what will make today a good birthday? And I said, you asking me to marry you. And so right there, he was like, will you marry me? And then I remember also, like, a couple years later, I'm like, if you don't marry me now, I'm going to break up with you, because I didn't want to, like, continue living a certain way or whatever. But I just think about, like, how man crazy that I was, because of the need to have someone there, because I felt like I needed somebody to help me and take care of me and do some things for me. So now I do my own stuff.
Right. That's awesome. And that's impacting to hear that dramatic change, because most people are not aware that there is a way out.
Yeah, there's a way out.
That there is a pathway out, and it's a methodical pathway that we also use. So, at this point, we would like to actually open up the floor to those of you joining us both here on Zoom and joining on Facebook. Right? For those of you joining on Facebook, if you'd like to actually come and share what your journey has been like, we invite you to go to the events tab. Just click on the link in the event and it'll bring you straight to our Zoom. Right? But we want to actually open up the floor for those of you who are actually joining us here. Is anyone here in particular, can anyone here relate to anything that Coach Kourtney experienced? We invite you to come and share your journey and what that journey has been like for you.
Can I go?
Of course.
Hi, Kourtney. Robin.
Hi, Robin. Good evening.
I just signed up to have Kourtney mentor me.
Yay, Robin.
So Zane,
we start Tuesday.
I know, and I've never been so excited. I was drawn to you for some reason, and I didn't know why. But as you were talking tonight, I can identify, I counted them, 21 very specific things you said that are lining up with my life.
Wow.
And I am absolutely blown away how God has put us together.
Yes.
Because even to the degree, like you said, you were dark complected living in a white world. Well, I was white complected living, my parents were missionaries to the Navajo Indians. So I lived in a brown community, and I just didn't fit, and I had red hair, and that whole search for approval and on, and I mean, literally, the valedictorian, the drive, I could go very shy, leadership, bingo. I'll talk to you more later about that. But,
of course,
and just realize, in fact, someone said, they saw me as they said, all your dreams, you're searching. And I said, I know, that's what life is. Like, I kept searching for this external to make me, and everything turning out so bad, and I was just kept getting devastated to realize it's within me.
Yes.
Is so exciting.
Yes.
For me. And then when you say it's a process, and I'm ready for the process, I'd like it to happen overnight, but I know it'll take a little longer. So that's basically my story.
Ooh, thank you so much for sharing. Yeah, those having external points of reference are an absolute headache, because there's never going to be a point where you are going to be satisfied with yourself, because you were never meant to have those. I mean, to the point for me where I didn't even want, there was a time in my life where I wanted, now my name's already Kourtney, but I wanted my name to be Stacy. I wanted to be white with blonde hair and blue eyes. That's how deep my self-hate was. And so now I've come to a place where that's insanity to me. But it's the reality of the narrative that I was living out. And so now, again, and Rob and I, we're about to walk from external points of reference and solely internal points of reference. And you are going to be guiding all the time.
That's what we're talking about.
All the time. I said got it.
And I like so much about what you guys do is you said there is an actual methodology. There are steps. There's homework. It's so specific how to get there, because I've got the concept. And actually, after I signed up with you, I was thinking, I can do this. I can like I know it. Like I just have to just do it. Like there's no. And it's like after hearing your story, it's like, oh no, I need help. I need help, and that is so hard for me to admit. But I'm desperate. I need help so bad.
Mm-hmm. Well, I'm glad that I'll be able to walk with you.
Oh, it helps so much to hear your story. And I know the other night when Zane was telling some of his story, it is so encouraging to know what you guys have come from to make who you are now. Because to look at you now, you have so much energy and you're so gifted and you're both of you and you're so talented and you're just beautiful people. I never would have thought either one of you had any feelings of inferiority ever.
Mm-hmm.
That's and that right there with his sister is Robin. One of that actually comes out of the decision to actually take, as you heard me say for a long time, I'm sure you heard me say, to take a pragmatic approach to what we believe and really test to see what it is and find what in particular was setting, what that Jesus was actually speaking about. What specifically was the message? What did he know? That was the whole objective of the Institute. And through that methodical, pragmatic, and experimental research, we eventually found it. And Kourtney is actually one. This is actually something that we have done with a good few people, not even few, a good group of people, and all of them have actually experienced the same thing. And so with Kourtney, you are in very good hands. In very good hands. So I look forward to actually hear about your journey with that transition, and really coming to understand that we have had the answer right in front of us, just we weren't looking at it in the way that we should have looked at it. Because we, in our westernized culture, we have the tendency to take everything abstract and everything is in the mind, and you have to driven by theories and philosophies. And I think most of us here can actually, if we are being true to ourselves, the philosophies did not work.
None of it worked. None of it worked.
It didn't work.
None.
And
it works a lot.
And by the way, this actually came, do you know that when I actually started this research back in 2015, you know that this research for me came out of my my decision that if this doesn't, this was the last straw for me, because I had gotten to a point where I realized that for 32 years of my life, we are applying this with no result, and I was going to leave Christianity. I was going to leave this whole Bible business.
Mm-hmm.
And so this actually came where I literally decided that let's take this pragmatic approach to it. And I was decided that if within 6 months there's nothing, this is over. I am leaving this and I am going to do what I want to do.
I was willing to do anything at that point.
Yeah,
I was willing to do anything. Yeah.
There's just frustration.
Yeah.
Frustration and the hurt that came with it. The constant, just as Kourtney was actually saying, the constant questioning. Because I heard an evangelist that came to Trinidad, a well-known televangelist, I wouldn't call his name. And I remember I stood up in this man's meeting. It was at our hotel, and I stood in this man's meeting. And he said that some people, God has turned their back on them already, and they just don't know it yet. And that sent me into a spiral.
Oh, my.
And a lot of the church rules.
Yeah, all it, and because you're working it like a system. Yeah, trying to actually get that validation, and it's just, as King Solomon put it in the book of Ecclesiastes, it's all smoke, all travail and vexation of spirit. The guy knew what he was talking about.
He did.
Yeah, so I look forward, Robin, to actually hear your journey with Kourtney, and I assure you that I look forward to it, and I assure you that you are going to have the experience that has always been there, and Kourtney will walk you through it.
I'm excited.
I look forward to that. I'll be in contact with Kourtney from time to time to find out how you're going and how you're proceeding. If that's all right.
Thank you.
No problem at all. No problem at all. And thank you for the courage to share what you just shared, Robin.
Yes, thank you.
We really appreciate that. Yeah. So, anyone else would like to share? Is there anything that was mentioned tonight that you could relate to? Feel free to unmute and share.
I think Donna unmuted.
Yeah.
Hey, go ahead. Welcome.
Thank you. Yeah, I grew up in a Christian household. And it wasn't physically abusive, but it was abusive and rigid, and I guess I just felt condemned a lot of the time, and then I got sent to a church school for my freshman year, and we worked all day, and I got kicked out during the summer because we still had to work, and I didn't really fit in with anybody, and I smoked pot for the first time and got kicked out. And then I ran away and got raped by a truck driver. And so I spent a lot of years looking for love, drinking, promiscuity, got married to a guy who was like my dad. And in and out, it's like I want to get in touch with God, and I start feeling like I find God, and then I go to church, and then it feels like I lose him. And so yeah, I don't know. I've decided that, the men thing is done. I'm going to be friends, and that's it. And I've lost a lot of friends lately, and I don't even care because I'm doing my own thing now. And it's like, I guess I have boundaries because I violated a lot of my own boundaries too. And I guess though I've been an underachiever, unlike Kourtney. It's like I get tired and burnt out, and I just like quit trying. And so I don't know, that's kind of where things have been at.
I can attest to the fact that I did experience that as I transitioned from external points of reference to self-existence. A lot of my relationships did get to change, like my circle, major major changes, because I really had somebody in my life who was very kind of controlling and always telling me what to do. And I barely had my own life or thoughts oftentimes. So that is very natural for as you start to walk from your heart, that self-existence will make you feel like, and I even would say that to Zane. I'm like, Zane, people in my life are changing and I feel like I'm okay with that. Is something wrong? He's like, no, that's very natural. When you're walking self-existently, you find that you don't need anyone or anything. And I mean that in the nicest way, but especially in the capacity where you were codependent, because we are in such a codependent society. Most of us don't even realize that the things that we are codependent on, that we don't need them. And that's part of that victim mindset. And so when you're walking in your self-existence, your circle definitely will begin to change because you're now dealing with in a different logic.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and I also want to just chime in on what Coach Kourtney said, because when you hear that, you might think, okay, well, this is going to be a lonely life. But one of the things that we encounter, that we discovered with regards to the dynamics of the spirit, of your spirit, your energy, is that usually the persons that you have around you are usually the persons that are either using the same thing that you are trying to validate yourself with. They're using the same, or they're usually helping your validation. And even though we may think that we have sincere friends, when their reference point changes, naturally, that actually breaks the bond that you have with the person that is using the same reference point that you may be using to validate yourself. So a very good sign of that changing and that shifting is where you are actually reorientating what you're using externally for personal validation to your heart and walking from there. And believe it or not, when that takes place, then and there are you in the position to actually have genuine, long-lasting relationships, friendships, because your criteria for relationship has changed. And it functions like a form of natural discernment and natural intelligence to actually look at those who are really functioning from their heart. And you can now discern those that are either they're using your connection or they're just smiling with you, but they're not, but in their heart they don't really feel that you and them are kin, if that makes sense.
I think now also in terms of like relationships, what they're dealing with is the real you. And so even as you
Exactly.
you're transitioning and you're starting to walk, live from your heart, which is the same thing as self-existence, or you will find, that your conversation is different. And so you're drawing different people, your thoughts about people, the reason why you have friendships. Like before, you were doing it because you were lonely. And so you were allowing yourself to spend time with certain people that you actually didn't enjoy their company. And so now when you do have those relationships, you're now surrounding yourself with people that genuinely want to be around who you are. And they welcome your thoughts, they welcome your joy, they welcome all the different parts of you. And so it's just like a whole completely different flow for me now.
Yeah, so that is that, as Kourtney put it, there is the fantastic thing about actually moving from codependent living and codependent identity to self-existent identity. Right? Is there anybody else that would like to share? Thank you, Donna, for actually taking the time and being courageous to share also what you had experienced.
Yes, thank you, Donna.
Right? Is there anybody else here that can relate? We'll actually take one more person.
That's me.
Yay, Odelia.
That was me. I'm like,
The
when
right
I heard your
title.
story, I'm like, that's my story too.
Woo!
Uh, yeah, I remember being in the religious system, and oh my God, I didn't even know that's what I was doing. Was that validation stuff. I didn't even know that's what I was doing, but I was in almost everything, leader of almost everything, except for what they would let me be because I was a woman, and and they would I didn't even know how tired I was until I stopped. Okay, I'm like, damn, I'm tired. I'm like, I didn't even know how tired I was. Just going, trying to. I guess that's what you said, like trying to please God, and because I know you love the Lord, but the
Absolutely.
mindset that I had was wrong mindset, and a few things I did was getting married. That was a validation thing for me,
Yep.
and because I didn't want to be looking like the woman that's just having sex with people and not married.
Same reason I got married.
That's right. The truth, doctrine, the truth, doctrine.
Right, and Lord. While some things I did do before that, I was into the drugs and alcohol, addiction before I got into the church system, and the Lord, miraculously took that desire out of my heart, and then I was feeling guilty in the religious system because every once in a while I did want me a Budweiser.
Well,
Ain't
I
nothing
felt
wrong with
guilty
well,
that.
when I did do it. Okay.
Ain't nothing wrong with that.
nothing
Right.
wrong with the Budweiser.
Right. So, and then I lived in this marriage for a long time as an unloved woman, as the Bible says, being married and unloved. And so that was terrible, and I didn't say nothing to nobody. I didn't tell nobody. I always thought it's my fault. You wanted to get married, so look.
Yep.
I thought about the scripture that says it's saying lean this to your soul, because that's what you wanted.
Yep.
And so I just dealt with it for 20 years.
Woo.
And a lot of the stuff that you said, about being in the leadership and don't want nobody to find out what you're doing. If you're wrong, I did the fasting too. Oh my goodness. I need to fast now, but anyway.
Funny.
I need to leave this food alone. It's too much. But anyway,
Look, in self-existence, we enjoy our food.
I sure am. I sure am. I sure am. I'm like,
That's
look, you
right.
don't like me like I am. Bad. I'm like,
We enjoy our food, and
right,
we function from our framework. Yes, we do.
that's right. And I know who I am now, and the things that I'm learning in the classes with Zane and it's like I can't even explain this. But it is nothing like it was before. And so when I hear people talking, from the religious standpoint,
Yes.
I hear it right away. And I just said, now, you got to be quiet for a minute so you can know which way to go in that, because you don't want to like kill people, because that's where I used to be at.
Right.
And you want to bring them in with gentleness.
Yeah.
So that's basically in a short version.
Right. It's so funny that you said that, because I even will say to Zane, like, I still meet with Zane even after, now that I'm coaching also, I still meet with him. But I said, when I go back and listen to our older sessions and I hear some of the things that I say, like, you can hear where I'm toggling between religion and self-existence and living from my heart. And I'm like, I can't believe I said that. But it is, and so I think it's great that, we're doing this, and, we're really spreading the truth about who we are and who others are, so that they can come out of that religion. And when they'll be in the place where they hear that or hear themselves say something like, oh no, that's the wrong logic, and you quickly switch back over to what you're supposed to be thinking
Yes.
and functioning from, which is our breath. And so, yeah, it's a blessing.
Yes, it is. And I noticed that when I start thinking or knowing something, I'm like, that is dust. That is dust to kill you.
Dusty thinking. Dusty, musty thinking.
Yes.
Or as I put it in the institute, dust yourself off. Dust yourself.
Come on, Zane. Dust yourself off.
Yeah, I like that one.
Right. So there was a comment, Zane. Did you see the comment in the chat on Zoom?
Feel free to go ahead and read it.
Yeah, I just want to read it. It's from Jade. She's saying that she can relate to it, but her background is noisy. But she says, due to having a hard childhood, I desired a relationship with God at a tender age. But to summarize everything, I've been to multiple churches seeking a closer relationship with God. There was always a feeling deep down that things were not right. Even though some of the teachings were encouraging, I began using the feeling deep inside me to leave. Eventually, stopped going to church because I didn't like how people in the churches were judgmental. They would have prayer meetings and it felt dry. It had a specific instance where a man came and prayed for me and started asking God to get me out of the abusive relationship I was in. I opened my eyes and thought to myself, was like, what the hell? I was confused because I was not in an abusive relationship. All of that just discouraged me. And eventually she came across Zane, and boom, now we're here talking, taking in all the information, all the knowledge, understanding, and wisdom. And so I definitely can relate to what you're saying too, where you have this feeling that something just wasn't right. And I say that all the time. I knew that, Jesus was the way, but something just wasn't right. And so that'll drive you to a point of craziness when you're like, okay, Jesus, I know it's Jesus, but all of this other stuff is sending me into this mental space where it's like almost like the Twilight Zone, and you can't breathe and you just feel confused. I just felt confused, and there was just so much hopelessness because I couldn't put two and two together and make a whole picture match, or put a puzzle together and make it work. So I definitely can attest to that. And even being in services, and she said yes, it was confusing. Jade said that inside of Zoom. And being in places and you're hearing all these different messages, and it's all 99 things for one verse. It just didn't make any sense, which was also confusing and not good for our mental health. So we're doing this because Christians have mental health issues too. Right. And a lot of that comes from those external point of references, and a lot of comes from that confusion, a lot of fear from all of the rules and not being able to keep the rules. And so it is okay to ask for help. It is okay to say, I don't want to stop believing in Jesus, but something's not right, and I don't know how to get the help that I need.
Yeah, so one of the things also I want to actually add to what Coach Kourtney is actually saying is that the methods that we use here at the International Institute of Pneumatology, I've said this before, and I hope I don't sound like a broken record, but it's something that we have actually applied well over 30,000 hours of experimental research. And most people, even in church in particular, they go to church, and what they don't understand is what the whole human conundrum was, even in scripture. And that all boils down to the fact that man was created to be self-existent, to function self-existently, and to be self-validated from the heart, from their original identity. And they fell into, listen to this, fell into using external things and people as their wisdom to know what their identity was, what their potential was, the limitations were, and also to know how to make decisions. So all of this in particular surrounding this process, and when Yeshua came and reinstated the incorruptible breath of life back into all. And I know some of you may have been taught that, you have to do these things but it was reinstated into all. And the apostles' message, Yeshua and the apostles' message was, the kingdom of God is here. Do you know that the kingdom of God is here? And Paul preaching the kingdom. You know that the kingdom of God, better translated through our modern English, means the dominion of breath. God is Elohim, is spirit. Elohim is breath. It means the dominion, living from the dominion of your heart, from that breath, through the name of God. So the methods that we use, that Coach Kourtney actually have been applying and have been having success with, was actually a very methodical approach where we have been able to identify the dynamics, the self-existent physics of your spirit, and bring you right back to the self-existence to experience what was given to you and what you may have been absconded of because of further external validations, where you're using church rules as your wisdom, you're using relationships, people as your wisdom.
Yeah. And as you're as you know, I'm coaching you, you're going to notice your home environment start to change. You're going to notice relationships start to change, your social life, your career, your finances, even what you're physically doing, you know, how you're eating, how you're learning, you know, your spiritual life, your creative life, your emotions, your feelings, all of that, all those areas are going to change, you know, as we're going through the process of getting you to self-existence.
All right, so for those of you actually joining us tonight, we want to firstly thank you for coming out. And for those of you who shared, thank you for actually stepping out in courage to share, because in some cases, even sharing what your experience has been, you may have been around persons that try to diminish what you had already experienced. And so we thank you for the opportunity, for taking the opportunity to share. And for those who are listening to this and those who will be listening to this, we fully endorse Coach Kourtney and the methods, as she's actually pretty much functioning through the same method of self-existence reorientation. We fully endorse her. And Coach Kourtney, would you like to tell everybody how they can, well, before you do that, somebody just actually mentioned in the comment section, can we ask questions? She has one question. Sure, Jade.
Absolutely. And also know we're doing this again on Monday. If you had questions tonight and we went longer on something and you didn't get to ask your question, no, you can also ask Monday. I believe we're doing it at 8 p.m. again.
Yes. Mm-hmm. And that one is actually more orientated to religious trauma, which a lot of Christians, unbelievably, have actually had those experiences.
Shay, did you want to type your question, or do you want to come on and ask your question?
Okay, I think she typed the question here. She says, are dreams visions from God or guidance? Okay, so Jade, that actually is a question that might take some time to unpack. But you can have dreams that are from God. What may take some time to unpack there for you is actually how to identify what is actually coming from God.
Especially if you still have areas of codependency, because that will be reflected in your dreams as well.
Yes, ma'am.
So it's important. So we can definitely unpack that a little bit more on Monday if you're able to join us or listen to the replay on Monday too. Yes. We can make that the first question.
But that's an awesome question.
It really is.
Okay, no problem. All right. Nicely.
Thank you.
Robin, I noticed that you unmuted. Was there something that you wanted to share?
I just want to thank you so much. I mean, Jade, Odelia, Donna, for sharing your stories. I felt so alone in this journey. I'm doing it because it's right and it resonates with me. But it's like I gained 3 sisters tonight, and it is so beautiful to know that you're struggling and searching and finding, and just thank you. So
awesome. Thank you for sharing that. Thank you for sharing that.
I can connect to that for sure. And you also may be feeling like some things you feel like you can't tell people because maybe where you came from, they may be judgmental or something like that. So it's okay to keep things private while you're still going through that process, because I definitely felt alone too. Like there's a season where it's okay not to share. You can share when your heart is ready to share.
Most definitely, most definitely. Jade also says, you said sisters, and she recently had a dream which was very sad with sisters. Right? So if there's anything that you would actually like to actually emphatically say tonight, is that you all are not alone. We are here with you. And Coach Kourtney, please let everyone know how they can get in contact with you.
Absolutely. You can go to my website, which is coachkourtney.com, and I'll spell my name for you. Kourtney, coachkourtney.com. You could follow me on social media at Coach Kourtney K. My last name is King, so it's Coach Kourtney K. You can email me at info@coachkourtney.com. And then if you ever have questions or something, you can even text me 917-609-1420. And if you have questions for Monday, feel free to inbox or send those to me so that we can, answer those for you too.
Boom, there you have it. All right. Awesome. So once again, I just want to thank each and every one of you for coming out here tonight. And by the way, Coach Kourtney on her website has a free ebook there.
Oh, I'm so glad you said that.
Let them know, Coach Kourtney.
Yeah, I have a couple things on my website they can go grab right now. If you go to coachkourtney.com and you go to my homepage and you scroll down, there's a free ebook called 3 Strategies to Truly Living Life, which literally tells you like something you can do today to start living from your heart. Yeah. And then I also have a free training on there that you can download called Living from Your Heart, which is another way to say live self-existently. And you can grab that, and it's an audio thing that'll lead you to my podcast. And I have a lot of great content on there as well. There's a blog on there. So there's a lot of different things that you can start looking at today to start walking from your heart.
Right, so don't miss out on that at all. Head to coachkourtneyk.com, right?
And no, it's just coachkourtney.com.
Oh, sorry, coachkourtney.com. Is the social media Coach Kourtney K, right?
Correct. Somebody already got Coach Kourtney, so I added the K.
All right. So make sure and head across there. And once again, we are deeply grateful for each and every one of you here tonight and for demonstrating the courage that you did to share. We thank you for your confidence in us. Most importantly, that you actually gave us that confidence to actually share what your journey has been like. We would like to know that you are not alone. We are here with you.
That's Michael Jackson. You are not alone.
Yes.
You know that song?
Yeah.
I am here with you.
Well, look at that. The Holy Spirit was singing through him. The Holy Spirit was singing to the brother, and you wasn't listening. All right, so get in contact with Coach Kourtney K, and this is us actually signing out. We will have our session on Monday night, 8 p.m. EST. If you have not actually indicated that you're going or you haven't registered, just go to the events tab in our Facebook community, Life Mindset Mentors. Click on that and register so that we will actually approach the religious trauma next week. So give it some thought. We are very much, you'll hear from both Kourtney and myself in regard to religious trauma because we have experienced them.
My God. I have so much to share.
Big time. I would actually share some things that I have not shared publicly. Only the master mentors of the International Institute of Pneumatology are actually familiar with some of these things. So I'm going to be a little bit vulnerable on Monday night with regards to some of the things that I went through and some of the things that I did. So we look forward to seeing you on Monday night. On that note, blessings, much and abundant love to each and every one of you.
Thanks for coming.
And see you on Monday night.
See you
Bye.
Monday. Tell people to come.
Blessings and much love.
Blessings and much love.
Blessing and love.